This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here. Now be sure to watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV by subscribing on YouTube and following them on social media for all the latest Leicester City news and information. Come on you foxes!
Strap yourself in because we're set up, switched on and ready to go. Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
Good evening, fellow Fox fans. How are you? 3 points last night. I tell you what, football games, they're a bit like buses. You wait 7 days for one, and then 2 of them come along at once. We're back on Monday night at 8 o'clock. It's the Premier... It is indeed, and it's nice, honestly. It's nice to be concentrating on the football again. Talking about concentrating, if you want something to take your mind off all this ESL shit, you could do a lot worse than this. And just a quick reminder, the Minding My Own Football Business book, it's written by our first chief executive, as you know, Barry Pierpoint. It's all about Leicester City in the 90s. It is a fantastic read. If you're old like me and remember it, it will give you another take on it. And if you're young and you weren't there, it's a great book about a decade of good success and change at the club. And if you go to all the W's, mindingmyownfootballbusiness.co.uk, you can get 30% off for the Leicester Till I Die viewers. So a good deal there. And Barry will sign it as well. I don't think he'll send you a Pierpoint out poster, but he'll certainly sign the book. And it's 30% off on all the W's, mindingmyownfootballbusiness.co.uk, and that is valid only on that website for the discount and only up until the end of April. And like I say, it is a really good read. You think football's going through a bit of a funny time this week? You should see what Leicester were doing in the 90s. Really. Anyway, like I say, 3 points last night. We're back in action on Monday. 8 o'clock, it's at the KP, and that's not it. That's it. 8 o'clock at the KP. It's on Sky Sports if you have that platform. If you want to listen to it, lcfc.com, BBC Radio 5 Live, and of course, BBC Radio Leicester. It is Palace. It's the return leg, as they say, and I'm really pleased to introduce and have this gentleman back on the show from Palace fan site Pride of South London Fan TV. It is Ali. So let's bring him in now. He's been waiting patiently. Good evening, Ali.
Good evening. How are you? Probably very good after your 3-0 victory last night.
Feeling very good. Feeling very good. I see you brought a little friend along as well.
It's just my Palace gnome. So when I started my channel, didn't really have all the graphics, which I do now when I do my own. So I just thought I'd have a little gnome. Yeah.
No, you've got to have a little friend, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I tell you what, looking at your injury list at the moment, give him a pair of boots, he could be playing for you, couldn't he?
I mean, he'd probably be better than could probably do a better pass than some of our central midfielders, so to speak. So, yeah.
Can I do? Just if you look at the, if everybody looks at the banner going across the bottom, that is your link to your fan site. Just give it a shout out though.
Yeah, no, Pride of South London Fan TV. I'd often do, so I'll be doing a match review of this game, so you can catch it on there, and then other football-related things like the ill-fated European Super League, of course, and a few videos about Wilfred Zaha as well. So yeah, check it out. Pride of South London Fan TV on YouTube. I'll be doing a review of the game on Monday.
Brilliant. The European Super League, I tell you what, I've had longer wanks than that. I really, really have. It came and went so quickly. Stephen Collins, good evening, Stephen. Thanks a lot for joining us from Ireland. How the devil are you, sir? Good, I hope. I'm going to ask you, Ali, are you going to give us a game? Because, like, we've played and we've won some games. We beat Man City 5-2, like we were saying before, but I don't think I've ever, although certainly not this season, played a team as bad as West Brom. Are you going to actually say give us a game?
I really don't know how we're going to turn up, because obviously we've got nothing to play for, really. And this time last season, we finished the season really badly when we were in a similar situation. We lost 8 on the trot, one of them against you. So Palace fans don't have a lot of hope for the end of our season, and it's petering out. We've got players, around 10 players coming out of contract. We've got a manager coming out of contract with their futures uncertain. So I really don't know how we'll turn up. If Zaha comes on his game and Eze comes on his game, then I think we can give you a game. But I'll be honest, watching you last night, you're exactly the type of team that will outwit Roy Hodgson tactically. He will come with his standard 4-4-2 against the central midfield of Tielemans, Ndidi and Maddison, and will get outpassed, outrun. I am very fearful after watching you last night. I watched you up to 3-0 and switched off because I couldn't face any more thinking about it.
You watched about the first half hour then?
Basically, I thought I'd better do my research, and then I thought, actually, this looks like it's going to be an awful Monday night.
It scared you a little bit. I tell you what, it was amazing to watch. I mean, you know, we were playing a side that are fighting for their lives, supposedly. They'd beaten Chelsea, albeit 10 men 5-2. They'd beaten Southampton, who obviously we were, played in the cup 3-0. I expected a team to sort of turn up. It was like a training match for us. And, I joked afterwards, it was like watching Brazil, but I think if I'd put my shoes on and got all my mates round, would have given them more of a game than West Ham. So I really do hope you're going to give us something to at least go for, because you have been our bogey team in the past.
I think we have been in the past, but I think last season you definitely got the better of us. And I think earlier in the season, I think you basically didn't beat us because you didn't play your best team. It was around that Christmas period. And I remember thinking at that time that if you'd played Jamie Vardy, it would have been over by half time. I thought you maybe made a bit of an error there, because I think you could have got a few goals before half time, finished us off and taken him off and rested him at half time. But obviously that was for the long game to keep him fresh for the end of the season, and it seems to be working. So I think you can judge that decision at the end of the season if you get top 4 or not. So I think what's interesting about us is we used to both be counter-attacking teams. So it was interesting to see that come up against each other. But I mean, you're talking a year and a half ago where we were really an effective counter-attacking team. We've sort of slowly regressed under Roy Hodgson. So I have you as firm favourites.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the results I've brought up there, I mean, we'll come on to the game earlier in the season next, but last season we did the double over, 3 and a 2-0. But I mean, you've got in there 4-1, and I seem to remember a 5 or 6-0 drubbing quite recently. And I never take games against Palace as given. I've got to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's because I think if Wilfred Zaha turns up on his game, then that's obviously a big factor. We've also added in Eze, but I don't think he's been utilised correctly by Roy Hodgson. And we can be very hard to beat when we set up in a compact manner and we counter-attack. And that was sort of the foundation of Roy Hodgson. But that we're not hard to beat anymore. If you look at the amount of goals that we've conceded this season, we've got in our central defence, we've got Gary Cahill, brilliant player in his day, but the end game is here for him now. And we've had a makeshift centre-half in Kiate all season, who's done a sterling job, but he's not a natural centre-half. So there's a lot of areas that I think that you can exploit. And I think we're a very different team. I think when Roy first came in, we had Johan Cabaye and we had an eye for a pass that kind of allowed us to have our own sort of style. But since Kabai's gone, we've been very, very stagnant. And I think you, probably in your mind is a Palace of a year and a half ago.
Quite possibly. I mean, it's been such a weird season. I mean, I don't think you could predict anything this season because, you look at the Villa-Liverpool result, you look at, say, the recent Albion-Chelsea result, and it has been a season. And I'm just looking, we played you, let's just bring the details up here. It was back in December, like you say. At your place, it was 1-1. But when I look at that game, and it's I've one of my colleagues on here doesn't like the fact that I always seem to quote stats there. But you look at, we were virtually all over you. Yes, we had no Jamie Vardy. We were quite bad at the time. I'm looking at the squad now. It was not say makeshift, but it wasn't our what we would call first choice team. But looking at that, we should have beaten you, but I think we would have been happy at that point. The fact that we came away with a point,
I think so. I mean, I think that was kind of I guess so. I think maybe, but I do think you had a couple of chances in the first half where I think Jamie Vardy would have put them away. So, and I think I mean that was probably perhaps Palace fans. We were surprised. We were in a really bad run of games at that point. So the fact that we came out and we did as well as we did on that day surprised us. But I still think that if you brought your A game and your A teams as such, that you would have won. I felt you had a couple of chances in the first half, and I thought Vardy would have put that away. It'd be 1 or 2-0 by now. But Brendan Rodgers will be justified in that decision if you get over the line for the top 4 and kept him fresh for the end of the season. It's one of those ones, isn't it, where you look at it and you think, well, that decision, we won't know if it's a good one or not until the end of game 38. So,
I mean, looking then, we had Kelechi and Acho up front, and he's been such an enigma this season because he scored 12 in 12. I don't want to worry you at all, but actually it's 13 in 13 after last night.
I've got to be I've got to be honest. There's the sad thing about our season is that I'm not worried. I mean, it's kind of at that point where you're indifferent. I mean, we've got nothing to play for, so yeah.
But sometimes, of course, like I say, with contact the second Kelechi, like I say, early in the season, he couldn't hit a barn door with a with a dart, but now he is sort of knocking them in. But you say you've got nothing to play for, but then again, you've got no pressure on you. You can just go out and you can, it's like when you see teams that sort of like, once a team is relegated and that pressure is off them, and I've seen Leicester in this position, suddenly you start winning a few games. So, we need the points. We're quite lucky that Chelsea and West Ham are playing each other this weekend. So hopefully they'll take some points off each other. And, sometimes it's better to play a team that's fight, like say with West Brom, because they're so nervous and there's so much pressure on them. You can, like you say, you're not going to go down. You're not going to qualify for Europe. 8 games to go. Your season's over. And I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No, I don't.
Just go out and kick it around, and the pressure's on us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's where I think it probably is a nervy game for you, is that you really don't know how we are going to turn up. And I guess if Wilfried Zaha brings his A game, I'm really, really hopeful that Hodgson will start Jeffrey Schlupp. He is actually a former player of yours, of course.
He is. Yeah.
He's very, very key to us having a counter-attacking system, because he can play. We've often used him as a third man in the central midfield. He can play. He's played on the right for us. He's played on the left. And if we had Schlupp, Eze, and Zaha in behind Benteke, I think we become a very fluid team all of a sudden, because they can interlink positions. But Hodgson has his favourites, and one of them is Jordan Ayew. And for me, Ayew had a good season last season. He's one of those players who maybe has a good season once every few, but I still think he's actually, to be quite blunt, quite an average player. He does work hard for the team. A lot of the fans say he should be in the team because he sort of runs a lot, but Forrest Gump runs a lot, and he doesn't play football. So
he's the ex-Swansea player, are you? If I remember.
Jordan Ayew, yeah. I mean, he had a very good season last season, but I don't think he's as natural a player as as some of the likes. So he sometimes plays on the right-hand side. So he's currently keeping Schlupp out, but I think Schlupp's more of a natural player than Jordan Ayew, and would help us be a bit more of a fluid team in that him, Eze and Saha can then sort of drift to the right, left and centre and go wherever, and they're much harder to pick up. And of course, we've had Jordan Ayew play above Batshuayi at times this season, which I think is ridiculous because Batshuayi is a much more natural player than Ayew. But Hodgson, the thing about Hodgson is he has his little favourites and he has his little favourite formations. He's like your great aunt at Christmas who gets you the same socks every year. He's very predictable. Yeah.
Yes. Talking of ex-players and Jeff Schlupp, and if I was working and I got a bit of money, I might put a bit of money on him to score because ex-players like to score against us. I think you paid us 12 million or something like that for him, and it was like a case, to be honest with you, from us of take the money and run. Because again, for us, Jeff Schlupp, and he's played, left mid, left back, defensive. He could run, and if he was running at the goal, he could leave defender standing. But he couldn't hit a barn door with a dart. He 9 times out of 10 it'd end up in row Z, and he's part of the Championship, the Premier League winning team, and we'll always love him for that. But I can't say he was a great loss to us. How impressed have you been with him since you've had him?
What I'd ask you is, what position did you predominantly play Schlupp in?
It was a mix, because, like I say, we could have him at sort of left back, the left wing back, or it was left midfield. So it was usually one of those two, occasionally as an out and out strike, but that was occasionally. Yeah, 9 times out of 10 it was down that left side.
See, what Hodgson did was started using him as sort of the third man in a 3-man central midfield, which he stopped doing because he's converted us to 4-4-2 with 2 central midfielders. And that's where it was. I thought Schlupp was a very clever player to use there, because he was really key to our counter in his having his pace through the middle, got us up the pitch quickly. So Hodgson would sit us back, but having Schlupp in the middle allowed us to get further up the pitch and get Saha on the ball. But when Schlupp's out, I actually think our whole tactical system evaporates. And I think he stopped using him in that role, which is a shame. He uses him more now on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. But I think when he does play, him, Eze and Saha sort of move around a bit. So I think he is crucial for me to Roy's system. So I don't, if you can say Roy's got a system, but when he doesn't play, our counter-attack, it melts. So I get what you're saying. I'm not saying he's a great player, but he's integral to our system and the way that we can counter-attack. I mean, we can counter-attack really. We can be one of the best counter-attacking teams in the league when we've got Saha and Eze on song. And Schlupp just gets us up that pitch. So he's so fundamental in that when he doesn't play, I think we just end up camped in our own half. So I get what you're saying. I don't think he's the greatest, but for us, he's been quite integral to our system.
I'm pleased. I mean, we was, it was just frustrating, I think, is the word I'm looking for, more than awful, if you like, because we knew we had potential. And sometimes players, a bit like Damari Gray this season, he's moved on, and sometimes players have to move on into a different team, into a different manager. We look at Inacho, and it's Brendan Rodgers that's getting a tune out of him where managers couldn't before. Scott, we're going to say good evening to Scott. He's saying he's hoping your players are already looking at what holidays they can book.
I don't think they can. We're not allowed, are we?
No, we're going to say they can't go away anyway, Scott, at the moment. So,
but I mean, they probably would be. I mean, some of them are out of contract in the summer anyway, so they probably don't really care that much. So, yeah.
I mean, we've had, and I always used to hate it when teams used to come on and fans used to say, especially fans of the so-called, top six or big six, super six, whatever you want to call them now. We've got you've got all these injuries, but everybody's had that this season because of the way that the fact that we had a short pre-season. There was about a month between last season ending, this ending season starting. Everybody's had problems. I mean, that, to be honest with you, I look at that and we've got 2 excellent players out, Harvey Barnes and James Justin, who, to be honest with you, would probably be, if they were fit, in the starting lineup. But that is probably the shortest list I've ever typed out for Leicester City's injuries. Then I look at yourself, LFT, that sort of late fitness test. I don't know how up to date that is, but that's what I got off the web yesterday.
Yeah.
You've got quite a long list of injuries there, haven't you?
Well, I mean, you'd never believe it because we had at one point we had a longer injury list than Liverpool, but you wouldn't read that in the media.
No.
No, but we did. We beat them, but that's one league table that we were top of at one point. But yeah, no, we do have a long injury list, and some of them are sort of common players who are injured. I mean, Schlupp's one who's just come back. That's one of his other problems and frustrating things. I do agree with you, by the way, on that description of him as frustrating. But I mean, Tompkins is a very important central defender to us. He's been out for most of the season, which has meant we've had to use Kiate as a makeshift centre back. He's training. I don't think he'll play. Gary Cahill should be fit, Roy has said. If not, it sounds like Sacco will come in, and if Sacco comes in, it's a complete lottery. You don't know what he will do. He'll either have a blinder or do something ridiculous. And he's one of our players coming up to the end of his contract as well. So you've got that thing: is are they going to be giving 100%? So I think really, I think what would be key to you actually, and what I fear most is even if Cahill is fit, him and Kiate against Iniacho and Vardy, I think they're going to eat them alive. Yeah, they're going to absolutely ruin them.
We've kind of stumbled on those two because we've tried playing the two of them together in the past. It hasn't really worked, but because of the injuries and we had to put, sometimes we had to put sort of rectangular blocks into square holes, and we kind of stumbled on this. And Vardy, I mean, he's back to scoring ways. He took that goal superbly against West Brom. I'm thinking, he's back because he hadn't scored in like 12 or 13. But we had kind of stumbled on that. But they are probably, in my eyes, and I know I'm sort of wearing blue tinted spectacles here, but they're probably the two the informed strikers at the moment. Yeah, playing them together. Vardy's become the provider, but I don't care who scores as long as one of them is.
I know it's very, very rare, isn't it, to see two strikers like that, out and out strikers like that, played up together. Now it's usually just the one, and that was the thing that struck me last night watching them was their relationship has really seemed to have blossomed over what must have been a handful of games, and their movement for me was why probably I switched off after the time I switched off, because I just thought they are going to absolutely destroy an aging Gary Cahill and a makeshift centre back in Kiate. And I think that is where you'll win the game in that area, and also in the central midfield, because we'll only go with two central midfielders. But they are, I mean, Iniacho was someone I was looking at in the summer, thinking, well, Leicester might not need him. We needed a striker. But he has really, really found his feet, hasn't he, in the last few games? So, yeah, I think that's going to be a big area, the striking area for you, and I think ultimately one of the big reasons why you'll win the game.
I think, Iniacho, I loved him when we signed him. I was so happy because, he was this, he was knocking them in for pleasure on when he played at Man City, but then again, so could my colleague Craig Bird, and I know he's watching because he's posted. I'm going to bring his question up in a minute. Okay. Anybody could score in that Man City squad, and we signed him. I thought, oh god, yeah, him and Vardy, and it hasn't worked out for him, and it was a shame. And the problem was he wasn't getting regular. He was being shoved in an odd game here and an odd game there, and strikers are judged on goals. Now he's had a run. And we're just seeing, if anybody, for me, he's got to be the first name over Jamie Vardy on the team sheet. But talking of strikers, Craig, and he's my co-host, and you've got to give a shout out to Craig, because I don't know if he heard my shout out yesterday, but he chooses the squad in every preview game, and he actually got the squad dead on for last night's game. So Craig, well done, mate. It's taken nearly 7/8 of the season for you to do it, but you finally got one of the teams right. But he asks there, has Zaha missed his chance of a big move, and is he really all that? He doesn't look like he enjoys playing anymore.
On that, I would say it's whether someone's prepared to pay the money for him, and that's the So a couple of seasons ago, Arsenal wanted Zaha, not Pepe. Do not believe the spin they put out on that they went for Pepe for the long term. Zaha met with Unai Emery. Zaha wanted to go, which obviously is a shame, but Emery wanted Zaha. But ultimately they went for Pepe because they could pay for him in installments rather than the larger fee that we wanted up front, because as we know, Kroenke is a stingy businessman, probably the Ian Beale football, except Ian Beale's cafe's probably got a better atmosphere than the Emirates. But so that was probably his chance. But, you know, ultimately look at Arsenal. Was it a big move? Because they're a mid-table side as well, aren't they? So that was probably his chance. But in terms of that, I think if you want a player who's going to hit the Premiership running next season, then I think one of those clubs above us should go for him. But I think now these sort of the bigger clubs, do we call them now sellouts, ESL clubs, bigger clubs? They want now, tend to go for sort of someone in the 18 to 24 age range so they've got a chance to develop them and maybe a sell-on value, whereas Wilf is now 28. So what I think will put teams off in terms of Wilf is the fact if he gets one injury, and I've seen it happen with Yannick Bolasie when he went to Everton, another sort of pacey, skillful player, that can really kill them at that time in their career. But if he doesn't, you're getting someone now in his prime. And in terms of not enjoying his football, I wouldn't enjoy playing for Roy Hodgson. And I think I've got two. What I'd say on this, I've got two videos on my channel actually. The first one I ever did was on Zaha's time at Man United, which exposes the myth that he was a flop there. They put absolutely no effort into developing him. And David Moyes, he's obviously had a very good season, but he's very good with players like Bowen. But a real flair player, if you look at what he's doing with Ben Rama hasn't scored a goal this season. He's not really about flair wingers. And the other one I've done is about Zaha's stats. Now, if you look at Zaha's stats over 4 seasons, they actually stand up incredibly well, considering we play, and it's statistically proven that we play in one of the most defensive teams in Europe. The season before this one, we scored one of the least amount of goals in Europe. And this season, he's got 9 goals in one of the most probably the most defensive team in the league. Most games we've got below 40% possession. He's been out with COVID. He's had an injury, and during those periods, those were teams in and around us or below us. So he probably should be. If he hadn't had that, he would definitely be in double figures this season. The season before that, he was a bit off because we were playing him on the left-hand side and he would just get treble marked. This was when we didn't have Eze. But the season before that, he was in double figures. And the season before that, he got 9 goals. And this is in one of the most defensive teams in the league. And you see the stats when he's not playing. It's like we've got 2 wins in 21 when he's not playing. He literally carries us on his back. And to be honest with you, the sort of criticisms of him, there's a lot of myths around him from opposition fans and the media. But about him, he's not that good. He flopped at Man United. He had his chance. He couldn't make the step up. He's not that good a player. And then they always go on about how we're a one-man team. But what I would say as well on him not enjoying his football, I think that's the latest myth on Wilfried Zaha, because he gets a bit angry and he has his hands in the air. And I think he's using it as a motive because he's the sort of player who sort of plays on a crowd, a little bit like Jamie Vardy did at Sellers Park once when we taunted him about the whole Colin Rooney, Rebecca Vardy court case, and then he scored that goal. And he did I can't remember, the Eagle celebration, taking the mick out. He plays off the crowd. So I think he's sort of playing off anger at other players to get himself going. But what I'd say on it, and what really annoys me, because there's some tired, lazy pundits out there. You had Steve Howe from Newcastle, Curtis Woodhouse, the former Sheffield United player, saying that they think Zaha can't be a top player because he's always whinging and moaning. Whereas when it was someone like Wayne Rooney for a big club or an ESL club or a sellout club, that's the anger, that's what's within him and drives him to make him a top player. So in answer to that question, I do think he can be a player for a top club, but has his chance gone? It depends, really. It depends if I don't know. I think the COVID market isn't helping him either. Every summer, I thought this will be the summer he goes, and he doesn't. So I think he can do it. It's whether someone is prepared to take a hit on a 28-year-old now.
Yes, yeah. Like you say, he's certainly not a long-term buy, is he? But funny you should mention the old Vardy Eagle, because that was a celebration that I don't think any of us would long forget. And I'm just waiting for something to load, and it's refusing to.
Oh,
I'm
fantastic.
going to say good evening to Rob in a minute, because we're going to actually ask your question in a minute, Rob, because it ties in with something I want to ask as well. But a message from Jamie here for you, Ali.
No, I mean, I enjoyed that. I mean, when you look back on it, I mean, Palace fans, we see it with Saha when, as I was saying, when opposition fans wind him up, it makes him play better. And Vardy is exactly that kind of player. So I think after the game, a lot of Palace fans on the forums and things like that were saying, why were fans winding Jamie Vardy up? That's exactly what you don't want to do. So, it was, I mean, obviously we didn't enjoy it, but it was a funny moment. And that's the sort of moments you miss about football, not being in the grounds, don't you? All that sort of banter.
Yes.
So,
yeah. I mean, looking at your season, and we'll come on to Roy Hodgson in a minute, because obviously I follow you on Twitter and I see sort of a lot of your comments coming up. No, we're gonna have to, I'm afraid. Just bite your tongue for a minute. But no, okay. I mean, you sat there 13th, like you say. You played 31 games. You've got 8 games to go. You're neither here nor there. You're in that mid-table sort of period. Mm-hmm. Is this as good as it gets for Palace? I mean, I'm looking at sort of your seasons that you've had, and I just wonder what the ambition. You got. Is Simon Jordan still your chairman?
No, you're going well back. Simon Jordan's on TalkSport now.
I'm going to say he's still.
Simon Jordan's on. Simon Jordan's took us into administration. Right. But to be fair, had a good 10 years with us. It's Steve Parish, but I can see why you're confused, because they have very similar hair.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. No, I hear him every day on TalkSport, and obviously he does talk about Palace. And I thought, I'm sure he's gone, but like I say, you sat there, like you can see there in 13th. You're just behind Wolves. You've got a game in hand on most, but as I say, is this as good as it gets?
Well, I think, look, Palace fans, we're not unrealistic. We know what we are, and we know where we are, and we know what we've invested. And I said at the start of the season, we'll finish somewhere between 11th to 15th. But we have no issues with where we are. We're not, a deluded club like Newcastle, for example. But what really gets us is the style of play when you're watching every match and we have less than 40% possession. And it's not when Roy first came in, it was again, has got very good results against big teams in his career with us. But he's now doing it against teams like Burnley. He'll sit back and will have less than 40% possession. So watching that week in, week out begins to get to you. And I don't think we can carry on with this regressive style. There was a point where we played Brighton, and if we'd lost that, we would have been sucked into the relegation fight, and we had Fulham in the next game. And we played Brighton. They had 25 shots on goal, and we had 2, and we scored both of them and won 2-1. But how often are you going to get? How much longer are we going to get away with that? And it was just mainly because Brighton's strikers. I mean, my gnome is better at scoring than Brighton strikers. So we got away with it. And I don't think next season, when you look at the teams coming up, I think we've been all the teams 11th and below have been quite lucky in that the bottom 3 have been a very set bottom 3 all season. Fulham threatened at one point to get out of it, but I think they're pretty much down now as well. Is that Watford are coming up? I think it was a surprise when they went down. Norwich, I think, will be stronger under Farke second time. And then there's some good teams in that playoff. So how much longer can we stagnate in the way we play? So I think there needs to be action. So where the Palace fans' discontent comes from our style and the aggression in our play, not where we sit, but in the style of play. And when we added Eze, there was a hope that would change. But he's just shunted him on the left-hand side of a 4-4-2 when he should be in an advanced central role if you ask any QPR fan, that's where he plays. And yeah, it's probably the biggest misuse of a player since Sven and Eriksson shunted Scholes to the left. So discontent on style, not on where we sit.
Yeah. Craig saying here, and he was pleased to see Steve Parish come out and say that he always votes at Premier League meetings as if he was in the Championship because he could be back there at some point. I mean, he is being honest, but it's not exactly ambitious. It's not exactly what you want to hear as a fan, is it?
No, I mean, I get what Steve Parish is saying. He's come out and said that, a few years ago that we have to up our ambitions as a club. And I believe he's doing that. We've got a Category A academy now. I think he was hoping to get a bit more out of what people don't realise is we've got American investors who have shares in at least half the club. So I think they've not really invested what we were hoping, or been as I think they're a little bit like some of these other American investors who've realised that the Premiership isn't the gold mine they thought it was in terms of making themselves money. And I think they're reluctant investors now. So I think he's held back there. I think where he comes from is when he bought the club, he bought us from hours of going out of existence. So it was only because Palace fans protested outside of Lloyd's Bank in London 10 years ago that Lloyd's put through a sale of our ground, which tied up the sale to Steve Parish. So he knows the pitfalls of the financial world in football. So he always remembers that. He is a Palace fan. We've been through 2 administrations. So I admire him in that. And I think when he comes out and speaks, when he did during the coronavirus for Project Restart, and last week, when you were looking for someone to come and speak in a measured way about the ESL, I'm going to call it the European Super League ESL. It's like a swear word. It's just disgusting. He spoke so well in the media when you were, and was so measured that, I think Steve Parish has won a lot of support from our fans this week. That I think, even if he said, I'm going to give Roy another year, I think the fans there, social media would erupt for 24 hours. We'd all have a hissy fit. I'd have a hissy fit. I'd throw my gnome out the window. But I trust him. We trust him because he has a very objective view of things. So that was good because I think, it is important that we remember those teams lower down as well. But I don't think he is. I do think he's looking upwards. But I think that's just a statement of recognition of where we've come from.
I think as fans as well, one thing that's come out of this ESL fiasco is, it's brought fans together, and my surprise was seeing fans of Man United going mad at Man United, fans of Liverpool going mad at Liverpool, actually hearing pundits like Gary Neville having to go at his own beloved Man United. But it's brought, I can remember, a few years ago when our late chairman passed away in the horrific helicopter accident, it brought the fans together, the love and the warmth and that came out from all clubs, from all leagues in all worlds was unbelievable. And it, brought home to us that, take the rivalry out and we are all football fans, that's certainly come through. But you say, and we've got to come on to him, and like you say, his time is up this summer. But I was looking at some stats, and they say 155 games he's played for, managed for you. Yeah, he might play. You never know. He might be that desperate. He's won 52. You've lost 65. He's got a win percentage of 33. But like I'm saying there, I was saying about, mid-table mediocrity. It's 11th, 12th, 14th. He's sat in 13th at the moment. Is he going to be let go? And Rob asked earlier, and this is why I say I wanted to bring this Rob's question in here. Do you keep him for, a bit longer? As Roy, is he taking you as far as he can? And if he goes, who would you like to see? Who do you think you could get that could come in and take you to that next stage?
You've asked me the question, haven't you? I'll answer it. It's a really, I'll come on to who I want in a moment. But I think he will go. And the reason, and that's an interesting question from Scott, and I'll answer that in a moment because he is someone I would consider. The reason why I think one of the big reasons is he will go is we've got around 10 players out of contract, which is a ridiculous situation. That's not Roy's fault. That's Steve Parrish's and our director of football, Dougie Freeman's fault to have 10 players, and there were more who have now signed up out of contract at the same time is ridiculous. But we've got players like Sacco, who is allegedly on 100 grand a week, and even Connor Wickham, who has hardly played for us because he's so injury prone, on 60 grand a week. We're going to get at least 200 grand a week off our wage bill. So that's what we're hoping, is that we can reinvest that and freshen up the squad, because we've got an aging squad. So it feels like if someone's going to start that process of freshening up the squad, and with Roy Hodgson's contract coming up at the same time, maybe now it is just a natural time to say goodbye. And I feel like it is going to happen, because this time last year, his 1-year extension was announced, and every week he's getting asked about it, and he's saying, I'll tell you when the time is right. And I think if he was staying, he would have said, I'm staying. I think it would have come out by now. Yeah. But then the coronavirus and the market and things like that, I could see why the board would say, well, Roy hasn't finished below 15th with us. We can't go gung-ho in the market. Let's play it safe for 1 more year. But all the sound bites I'm getting is that he will go. So who would I replace him with? There is no overwhelming favourite among the Palace fans. Every candidate you put forward, someone will find a negative a reason not to. So the names that keep coming up is Eddie Howe. For me, I find that interesting, but I would question him about his recruitment, particularly at the end. He spent a lot of money on Liverpool players like Solanke and Jordan Ebe, that around 20 million on each. That was a waste. And ultimately he got relegated. So I do think he did a very good job at Bournemouth, and he's a very interesting, clever guy when you hear him speak about football, and he would progress the style. So I wouldn't be averse to that one, but he's heavily linked with Celtic. And then you get Sean Dyche. For me, I don't see the point getting rid of Roy for Sean Dyche. You're just getting similar, probably not the best style, a guarantee probably that you're going to finish 11th to 15th. I don't see why we roll the dice for that, except that he's younger and would go for a bit of a longer time. So then you come to Frank Lampard. Now, out of those 3, the names that keep coming up, I am leaning. Initially, I was totally against Lampard, based on the fact that if you ask Derby fans and Chelsea fans, his defensive structure was very questionable at both clubs. However, I do think we're the sort of club where he sits now. Obviously, he did a good job at Derby, got them to the playoff final. He did very, very well Chelsea first season, got them to an FA Cup final, top 4 on a transfer embargo, and was ultimately really badly treated at Chelsea, and he wasn't given a chance. Okay, the decision looks vindicated now. Thomas Tuchel's gone in and done really well. But he was only like 5 points off the top 4 and was in the last 16 of the Champions League. And I just think if you had Lampard alongside an experienced number 2, a good defensive coach, and his development of young players, because we've got a really good, our under 18s are ripping it up, and our under 23s aren't doing too bad. With category A academy, our academies probably never looked so good, and particularly in our under 18, we think we've got a few Wilfred Sahas coming through. Our South London catchment area is very good. You look at the way he developed Mason Mount, for example. Yeah, that's a very interesting appointment. But I'm sure Jody Morris is a good coach, but at Chelsea, I always thought, a bit like Ole Gunnar has Mike Phelan alongside him, he needs a bit more experience and a defensive coach alongside him. Out of those 3, I'd probably plump for Lampard. But the other name that I think is interesting, and I think, why can't we get him if he's been at Newcastle on a Mike Ashley budget, is Rafa Benitez.
That's a very good point. And I was listening to I think probably it was Talk Sport. And we're talking about, would Benitez go back to Newcastle, and what other clubs would he go for? And they were saying that in a way, Benitez's his setting, if you like, is that he can't necessarily, and again, no disrespect for you, expect to go to and I include Leicester in this, but he doesn't expect to go to a Liverpool, a Man United. He's got to maybe look now at the Leicesters, the Palaces, and what have you. So he's very good. Couple of points you made there. I mean, I actually live in Poole, just down from Bournemouth, so down the road from Bournemouth. So I know sort of Bournemouth and them quite well. And I lived in Burnley for 20 odd years, so I know Burnley quite well. First of all, Frank Lampard, I think he could be good for you, because he seemed to do well with Chelsea when he was developing the youngsters. Yeah. You know, when the transfer embargo was left and he went out to buy all that's when it seemed to go wrong for him. So maybe
I'm not convinced I'm not convinced they were his signings either. I'm not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I think, if you're looking at a club that maybe hasn't got the budget of like a Chelsea, and who has, apart from Man City, it could be good. Sean Dyche, I've got to be totally honest with you, I can't see him leaving Burnley. We used to be linked with him regularly, and he's just. I think he's got a job there. He's taken them down. They didn't sack him. He's brought them back up. I think he's probably got a job there for life, or as long as he wants it. Eddie Howe's the interesting one, because I can remember when I came down to Dorset 10 years ago, that there was fans of Bournemouth collected money in buckets outside the pavilion because they were in that much trouble financially. They were in tier 4 with 17 points deducted.
Yeah.
Third of the way through that season, Eddie Howe came in and he lived the dream. And to be honest with you, had Leicester not won the Premier League the season we did, Bournemouth would have been the story, because that was their first season in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I don't know I'm not sure he would go to Celtic, because, of course, Eddie did go to Burnley. And the problem you got with Eddie is all his family, and he is a big family man. And if you see him speak now, he's enjoying his time off because he can be with his family. He obviously at some point will want to get back in. I think Celtic, if you like, is too far for him. It's an easy job for him because you're guaranteed first or second, but then the board will probably want first. The thing with London is it's 2 hours on the train. It's a lot closer.
That has been something that's been mentioned as well. That has been mentioned as a factor. I think listen, I think the interesting thing is, for me, is what people don't realize is their managers, I know, do get interviewed, and to be honest with you, I want to just put some respect on Roy Hodgson's name, because he's taken us through. He saved us from the board debacle, and then he's taken us through these COVID times, which is such an important time. If you think that if you go down the season, the financial peril of that, considering a year of no match day revenue, is massive. So I think history will be kind to Roy Hodgson. I'd actually offer him the first interview and be like, okay, Roy, we've come 13th. We want to improve the style. What are you going to do? I'd at least give him that kind of respect. But I think as well, I'd be asking questions. I'm sure they've been speaking to managers, to be honest. I'd be asking Eddie Howe, how involved were you in the recruitment at Bournemouth? I'd be asking Frank Lampard, how are you going to improve your defensive setup? I'd be asking all these questions. And I think, like I said, whenever you hear Steve Parish speak at critical points, like he has in the last year, he comes across as a very measured man. And I think he's learnt a lot from the board sort of situation. I think he's going to make a very measured decision. And I actually really trust him to make the right one for the club.
Dream team then, Roy Hodgson maybe staying on as that senior figure with Frank Lampard coming in?
No, if he goes, I just want him. I want him gone. It's been really, to be honest, like as I said, I really respect him, but it's been really grim to watch this season. I think we just need a fresh break. Right. Possibly you could keep Ray Lewington in, his number 2.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in fairness, us fans outside of the Palace circle, if you like, we see and rethink of Roy Hodgson of the England debacle and all that, and you see him more as more what he's done for you as a club,
But I also think fans must look at us from the outside and think, what are they complaining about? They're 13th. The way I'd sum it up to Leicester fans is when you had, and I know when I've spoken to Leicester fans before, it really hammers home with them, is when you had Claude Puel. A lot of fans, I used to look in and think, what are they moaning about? They're top 10. Unless you're really watching the games every day, you don't really know what's the style and the true story. And that's very much the same with Roy. I think it's very similar.
I'd agree 100% with that. And the problem is with football fans generally, the more success we have, the more success we want, and last season, if you'd given me 5th Europa League, I would have bitten your hand off, but we were all peed off the fact that we'd been top 4 and we threw it away. Look at Leicester this season, and I know obviously you've not been watching us week in, week out. We've sat there in 4th. We blew it last season, right at the end. We didn't come back from post-COVID very well at all, and we slowly sort of sunk week by week. Do you see us maintaining that top 4? Do you see us finishing in a Champions League spot?
I think it was a very big win for you yesterday because you needed to react to the last league defeat. I think you'll see it over the line, and if you see it over the line, and West Ham don't get top 4, I would act like Brendan Rodgers is actually my manager of the year. What I don't think, I think what gets underestimated for me is his kidiology, his ability to manage players. And I thought that last season you were very unlucky. And ultimately, you were the most affected, probably alongside Bournemouth, by the lockdown and the project restart, because you came back and you had Maddison injured. Man United came back and they had Pogba and Rashford fit. And I'm not taking anything away from Man United. That project restart was what it was, and they took it. They did what they did from everyone was at a point, and they did very well from those games. But I do think then, then after that disappointment, to get your team up for it again. And fighting for the top 4 and being in the top 4 all season. No one's been talking about that enough. His man management and his ideology. And you go back to Liverpool as well. People used to say, oh, he had Suarez. Suarez is a player who really needs man managing. Trust me. I mean, he is a real character. I mean, I've seen him crying on the pitch of Sellers Park after we came back from 3-0 down on the Istanbul game. I think that got underestimated, how well he managed him and got a tune out of him. That's one of his real strengths. People talk about the style of Brendan plays. No one ever really, for me, talks enough about his man management. And you go back to the situation when Wes Morgan had his midlife crisis recently and held that party. I think his man management, that has been superb. The way he took the decision that maybe cost you some points. And then he said, right, it's a semi-final now. We've got to use this and come together. And you win that semi-final, and then you've beaten West Brom. His man management of that has been very good as well. So I think you will do it this time. I think as well, what he's done really well is reshaping you, like you've alluded to in this pod, when you lost Harvey Barnes and then bringing in an Iniacho and basically changing your whole system. So I think he's done an incredible job. I love Maddison. He's great to watch. He won't go to the Euros because he doesn't play for an ESL club, but he's very good. Vardy is always, a great footballing character. And I think as well, the fullback you lost, Justin, was in my fantasy football team. That was a bitter blow to me when he got injured. I think he's been brilliant to watch, and great club characters like Casper and Michael. And you are you are probably the big reason why what happened this week happened, because they couldn't handle it when you won the league. There
was those rumours, and it goes back to when we won it, that certain chairman came out and said that, we can't allow this to happen again. But no, thank you for those kind words. Going to end now, but before we go, it's that awful time, when you're always going to be asked this. Prediction. Now we do, I don't know if you remember, we do a prediction league with some ex-Foxes here and myself, and I have to keep mentioning it. One of us is 6 points ahead at the top, and it's not an ex-player, so I'll let you work that one out. But these are the scores that we've gone for, and it's pretty much, it is across the board. None of us seem to hold out much hope for you, but Steve Walsh, Steve Lyons, Ian Marsh, they've literally all gone there for 2-0. I was thinking 2-0, but I have a feeling, if you say Sahara's on form, we've always can concede a goal, so it might be 2-1. But unfortunately, as I say, none of us are sort of holding out much hope for you there. Come on, you've got to have a bit of hope, haven't you? You don't know what Leicester are going to turn up.
No, I really don't. I mean, listen, the key to it will be, as I said, is Roy will play, and I think it's actually going to be a watershed moment in Roy Ball. He's going to play 4-4-2, 2 central midfielders against the central midfield of Tillemans, Ndidi and Maddison. And we're going to get outpassed, we're going to get outrun. And then you got the Iniacho and Vardy factor. I think it will be, because you're tired and you played on Thursday and we didn't have a game on the Cup semi-final week, that might play into our hands. I'm going to go 4-2 to Leicester.
Wow.
High scoring.
I'll take that, obviously. I will take that. Thank you very much. Ali, just give your podcast out a shout out again.
So
people
thank
can
you.
See where they can find you.
Yeah, I think there's been a link during this, isn't there? It's Pride of South London Fan TV, so I think there's been a link in here. I'll put the link on the comment section as well on the YouTube. Lots of videos. I did one as well on the whole European Super League thing as well. So have a little look, because it's not just Palace stuff. If you don't want to get bored, listen to Roy Ball. But I have a review up on Monday night of the game. So hopefully my prediction is wrong, but not holding out much hope. But yeah, all the best for the rest of the season, and thank you very much for having me on.
And Ali, thank you so much for coming on. You're going to be with us next year, so hopefully we'll do this again next season.
Lovely.
And after Monday night, good luck for the rest of the season, and stay safe, mate.
Thank you very much. Pray for Roy to go.
Fingers crossed for you, mate. Take care.
You.
Cheers. Bye-bye. And then that's the first. We've got a fan saying, pray for our manager to go. Hey, what about Mourinho? We never mentioned Mourinho. He's available. Maybe not. Guys, Monday night, we've got it. And like I say, thank Ali there. He's mentioned his podcast, Pride of South London Fan TV. We are going to be back on Sunday night. Before Line of Duty. I'm clever. I haven't clashed with Line of Duty, but it will probably clash with Antiques Roadshow, so you can watch us instead of that. We're going to do the preview show, me and Craig. He got the team spot on last week. Can he do it this week? He can't do it 2 weeks running, surely, can he? He did it, though. Join us at 7 on Sunday. We'll all be previewing the game. And then, obviously, on Monday, 40 minutes before kickoff, we'll be doing the pre-match show. And 40 minutes after kickoff, we will be doing the post-match show. Guys, we've just hit the 450 subs. Thank you so much for all the subs. Keep subbing us. We'd like to try and get to 500 by the end of the season, if that is possible. It would be great. So you got the subs telling there. Subscribe. In that corner there somewhere, there's a little subscribe thing. Click on that if you haven't done, and subscribe to the channel, and you'll see all of our shows. And if you want to listen back to this, or you can watch it back, of course, on YouTube, Leicester Till I Die TV. And if you want to listen to us while you're doing the washing up or taking the dog for a walk, whatever you do, you can get into the podcasts on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify TV, and Podcast Addict, Timothy Teeth in, to name but a few. And don't forget as well, guys, you can still get 30% off on Barry Pierpoint, Leicester's first chief executive. His book, Minding My Own Football Business, is a story of taking Leicester from private to public ownership and our successful years, which was a successful decade with O'Neill in the 1990s. All the W's, mindingmyownfootballbusiness.co.uk, and Leicester Till I Die readers, viewers there can get 30% off in April only on that website only. And Barry will sign the book for you with a personal message. Thanks again to Ali. It's always great. And he gave me an excuse to play this again. I never thought I'd be playing. I forgot all about that. Never thought I'd be playing that to a Palace fan. That was a nice, fun moment. Guys, Sunday night, have a good weekend. Don't do anything I wouldn't enjoy. That leaves it open. I will see you 7 o'clock along with Craig on Sunday for the preview show. Stay safe, guys. Good night.
Hello, Matt Elliott here. Be sure to watch Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and follow all them social media platforms for all the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football Club.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye, and see you next time.
Some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now.